Super excited to bring on Annie Brady to the show today. It's a super awesome interview, tons of insight. Now, in her words, her journey has been anything but linear, right? It's been ups and downs and everything in between. But one of the things she said is she's grateful. She's got a lot of gratitude for the lessons that she's learned along the way. We'll be talking to her about her journey from high school to the college level, where she played junior college basketball and volleyball at Salt Lake Community College. She also transitioned to the Division I level at Colorado State. She went through injuries there. She continued her playing career. She then served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And upon returning, she went and played a short stint overseas for basketball. And that was before she got injured again, and she went through an injury process and rehab, and now she's coaching back at her alma mater. So she's an assistant coach at Colorado State for the women's basketball program, and we'll be talking about her entire journey. There's so many lessons along that quick little synopsis right there that you're going to love. I mean, if you're an aspiring athlete, you want to play at the next level. If you're a parent who has an athlete who wants to play at the next level, Annie knows what it takes. She also comes from a house of athletes and those who understand playing at the next level. I mean, they all but one played collegiate athletics. And I mean, she just understands what it takes to get to the next level. And so what the point of the show is all about is to learn from those people that are on the show, learn from them, because they're sharing their stories and you can take a lot of information and apply it into your own lives. So I would highly encourage you guys to take notes of this one. This is the Gametime Guru. So
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. My name is Shane Larson, host of the show. We're almost 8 years running into the podcast. I mean, man, we started this show in 2017 and January of 17, and here it is now. And at the time of this recording, we're in September of 2024. So we're almost 8 years down. It's been downloaded in 182 countries in all 50 states, and we continue to try to grow the YouTube channel. So if you haven't done so already, for those who are longtime listeners, you know that my goal in 2024 was to grow this YouTube channel. And I've never really optimized YouTube. Everybody listens to the podcast. They don't really watch the podcast because I never promoted it on YouTube until just this year. It's always been on there. I've just never made an effort. So if you guys would do me a favor, hit me with that follow on YouTube. You can listen and watch all of the interviews that I've done. And I promise you guys will enjoy them. So hit us with that follow over on YouTube if you like that. And as you guys heard in the introduction, today is a very special one. I mean, I've spoken with our guest's brother 2 times on the show, one 6 years ago and one just about a month and a half ago. And now I have the opportunity to speak to her. And I also work with her other brother at my current job. So I've hooped with him for quite a while. So today we get to learn a little bit about her and her coaching experience, but as well as her playing experience as well as coaching is what I should say. But her name is Annie Brady. Annie, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
Absolutely. So tell us where you're at right now. Currently, where do you reside and what are you up to?
So right now I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I'm an assistant on the women's basketball program here. So yeah, it's been great so far.
And to my understanding, Annie, you just got you're relatively new to the coaching scene as far as like being an assistant coach. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is. I actually just started coaching in May, so moved out to Colorado, and yeah, this is the first stop for me. So really fortunate to be back here. Colorado State is my alma mater, and so it's been great to be back, and I feel really blessed to be here.
That's awesome. It's probably pretty cool going back to where you were at, where you played and stuff. Probably pretty weird too at the same time, going back and then like coaching now, like being in the coaching side. So we'll unbox that in a little bit. But talking about the playing days, I want to unbox this a little bit. So you're in Colorado. Where did you grow up, and where did you hoop through high school and stuff like that?
So I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we went to Cottonwood High School. And I graduated from Cottonwood, and then following Cottonwood, I started at Salt Lake Community College. And I was actually a dual sport athlete, and so I did volleyball and basketball. And then from there transferred to Colorado State and was there for 3 years and finished my career there, my college career there. So
Did you focus on basketball specifically at Colorado State, or did you maintain
I
the dual athlete?
I did maintain the dual athlete. So when I went on my visit, Coach Williams, my head coach now, who I work for, he said, we'll let you keep playing both if you want to keep doing both. And so I actually met with the volleyball coach at that time, and our plan was to stagger the years. And so played 2 years of basketball and then used my 5th year to play volleyball. And in that time, I practiced with volleyball outside of the basketball season. So my first year I played basketball and then played the spring volleyball season. And then my 4th year, I was practicing with volleyball before basketball season started. I actually tore my ACL at volleyball practice. And so I had a medical redshirt year that 4th year, and then just played basketball my 5th year to finish my collegiate career. So.
Whoa. Okay. See, I don't think I must have missed that piece of it when I was doing some research on your career. I knew you had an ACL injury later on in your career. I assumed it was basketball that caused that. It was volleyball that caused that.
Yeah, I've had 2 ACLs actually. So the first one was volleyball, and then the second one was basketball when I was playing overseas. So.
Holy cow. Okay. That's wild. Okay. We're going to unbox that a little bit too. Playing ball. So first and foremost, for those who don't realize, her family and Annie, this is why Griffin was telling me they're like one of the most athletic of the entire crew. That makes sense to me now. All of this is making sense. It's checking out. But I have played basketball against Griffin, which is he's your older brother. Yeah. So Griffin, I play ball with him here in Boise quite a bit. That dude, I've said this before to other people, but he's one of the only people I've never been able to fully guard. If you step off him, he shoots a 3. If you guard him, he beats you. Even if he misses his shot and you play good defense, he crashes his own rebound. Super athletic. And now I'm starting to see it's a family thing. Y'all are very competitive. I want to know what it's like though, from your perspective, being in a family with stud athletes like that, and just being around that. Was it a competitive environment? What was it like with the siblings growing up in your guys' household?
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 7, and all of them except our oldest sister played collegiate athletics, and our oldest sister was always our biggest cheerleader, so we were super grateful for that. But yeah, it was really competitive, but also I will say, being the youngest, I feel very lucky to just have learned from each of them. I watched what all of them were doing in college and kind of the routes they took, and they were huge mentors when it kind of came my turn to navigate those things. And so yeah, really competitive, but also very, my older siblings, I look up to them a lot, and they're just always there to encourage. So there was always a lot of competitive nature going on at home. And now it's everybody goes home, and you don't come home without bringing your basketball shoes, because we're going to go and try find somewhere to play pickup. But yeah, super competitive. And there are 5 that are a bit older than me. And so there was a little bit of a gap, but just a huge, I would say, mentorship, honestly, is really what I got from my older siblings.
That's actually really cool. Is there something that you took away from them specifically? As far as what, I mean, I've asked other athletes before who had parents that played at the next level, whether it be collegiate or professionally. And they would say random things sometimes their mom or dad taught them what it's going to take in college. It's discipline as far as going to class and doing the thing, and the grind of just the everyday thing. You're going to have to be mentally tough to just do the thing. Was there something that you learned specifically from your older siblings that competed at the next level?
Yeah, a little bit of that stuff is just, you are going to have to work really hard and get your shots up extra in the gym. And as far as deciding where to go to play and recruiting, I think for me, choosing to go to the junior college route was huge, in that my sister and my older brother both played at Salt Lake Community College, and I had just had a long time respect for that program and for the women's basketball coach there, specifically Betsy Specketer. And so really wanted to play for her, and had a lot to learn from her. But yeah, they just always expected a lot of high level of hard work, both for my parents and older siblings. So was grateful for them for always being willing to get in the gym with us for extra shots up and stuff like that too. So.
Oh, that's so cool. And shout out to Salt Lake Community College. So Slick is one of those schools that unless you're in the area, you don't really talk about them much outside of the Northwest. But I will tell you this, I've had in the last 8 years, multiple athletes that have been on this show who have played at Slick. I'm telling you, men and women. I mean, it's a really good program, and I've got friends of mine who competed down there. The Spute family, I had CJ Spute that went down there, and I mean, Natalie Lanehart was down there. I mean, there's just a lot of athletes that go through Slick. It's truly a powerhouse junior college program that develops the athletes. I think it's so cool. And it's cool to hear all that. Side note, I don't know if you knew this, but my cousin is apparently your guys' cousin. The Stallworthys are actually the ones that got me in contact with Jordan back in 2018. And
Really?
So they're all down in there in Utah too. So Greg Stallworthy is married to my cousin, Jessica. So
Okay.
such a random connection. I know it's like, I think it's somewhere in there that's like connected to you guys, but yeah, that's where we're all connected in some form. So Annie, as you were growing up, playing basketball and volleyball, for that matter, through high school, walk us through a day in the life of Annie Brady in high school. Like when you were competing and you knew you wanted to play at the next level, what was a day in the life like for you? Was it different than anybody else with training that was involved, or what was it like for you?
That's a good question. So I've kind of thought about this now being on the coaching side of things, and we'll probably talk about later, but seeing all these kids that are in club circuits and playing a ton of basketball. I actually didn't play club basketball. And so it's kind of crazy now to be on the coaching side and seeing all of the exposure and extra training that kids are getting, especially nowadays. I think it's really ramped up a lot. But when I was in high school, I actually really appreciated a lot of that was there were a lot of athletics. I have a brother that's just a year older than me, so he and I were going to practices back and forth together, but it was just school, practice, and then he and I would maybe hang out and get some shots up. My older brother, when they were in town, we would go and get shots up. But high school, I feel like it was a good balance of still getting a lot of fun things in as a high school kid, and just in the summers getting in the gym and kind of playing around. And it was a really fun thing. And I think that was a huge part in me. I still love the game to this day. So it was, not a lot of club ball. There was an AAU season in the spring that kind of made it fun, but it was just a good social thing. And I always loved it a lot to just keep me active, and something that I did with my family. So
that's actually really, really insightful too, because I'm a club coach. I coach the 17U squads for one of our clubs here. And it's weird to me, the dynamic of basketball now compared to when I was in high school. And just like, it almost felt like in order to get recruited now, like you almost have to be playing. So it's unique that, that wasn't necessarily part of what you were doing, but you also had like, you were still training, and you had your brother that would help you, and you would get extra shots up. And I think that's actually really cool. Kind of gets me into the next question here, is like an accountability buddy, so to speak. I always had one in high school. We would go to the gym together. We'd lift weights together. We would shoot hoops together. We would work on sprints together. Seems like you had your brother, but did you ever like have any teammates of yours on your actual teams that would like work out with you that you could count on? And what are your thoughts on having an accountability teammate, so to speak, in the off season specifically?
An accountability buddy is huge. I think I did have some really good friends that we played together in the summers when we had chances to get together and play pickup. And one of them is actually, so my best friend that was my teammate actually married my brother. And so she's now family. So she was my accountability buddy kind of in the summer and throughout high school. And we would get in the gym and get shots up together. And we've been family for a long time before they actually got married and sealed that deal. But no, just having somebody that you can say like, hey, we need to get shots up, or we're staying after practice and we're getting shots up, and they're there to kind of push you. And some days when it's like, oh, I don't know if there's somebody there to rebound, it's just kind of huge to have somebody that's there to willing to get in the gym with you. And it makes it fun too. And when season rolls around, you know that you've put in a lot of work together. And so it kind of carries over when you get to season as well.
I love that. I can attest to that, dude. Like when I was in high school, I mean, I was a late bloomer. And so I wasn't naturally just like stud athlete. I had to work for it. I was young, and I graduated when I was 17, and I had to work for it. And so I remember having my buddy go, and like the confidence it developed like for me, like it just provided me with a different sense of confidence going into my junior and my senior years, because I was putting in a ton of work in the off season. And that probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't have my friend that was with me like literally every step of the way. Shout out Pat Denning. Kid's a stud. He and I were always in the gym together. So walk us through the recruiting process too. So playing volleyball, playing basketball, At what point did you know that you were going to play at next level? And like, you're going through the recruiting process. You chose the junior college route, but like, what was the recruiting process like for you? Did it start early? Did it start your senior year? Did it start after your senior year was over? Sometimes some kids recruiting doesn't actually even start until they finish their sport their senior year. So I just am curious how it worked for you.
Yeah, my recruiting process, it was a bit later. And so it wasn't until my senior year, actually. And I always knew I wanted to play, having siblings that had played. It was kind of like, yeah, I want to do this, but I didn't know exactly how to navigate that. But my volleyball team, actually, my last home volleyball game, the coach at Salt Lake Community College decided to come and watch. Thanks to our mother. If you ever get the chance to meet her, she's awesome. But she didn't tell me this, but she called her and was like, hey, my daughter's playing. And as coaches, you probably get that call. You get that call all the time, like, come watch my kid. But she did. Sue came and watched, and from there invited me to open gym. And I had been in touch with Coach Speck for basketball, but that's really kind of where it started my senior year of getting pretty serious. And there were some, Division I conversations, but it was kind of, I felt really good about going to Slick and just having the opportunity to continue playing both volleyball and basketball. And early on, actually, my senior year, I kind of decided I want to pursue the volleyball route, actually. And so I wasn't going to play basketball anymore. And I remember having that conversation with my high school coach, and I went home, and it was around, there were a lot of March Madness games going on at that time. And I'm watching some of these games, and I'm like, oh, I think I made the wrong decision. So the next day I'm back in my coach's office, and she's like, we'll work with you on whatever you want to do. But I ended up, just a volleyball and basketball season. And I can't remember exactly when I decided on Slick. I think it was probably in that springtime, but I just felt really good, somewhere that I knew would fit where I wanted to go and where I could perform well and learn a lot from both of those coaches who I respected a lot, and would be a really good fit for me to meet kind of longer term goals after that step.
So cool. Everyone's journey is unique, right? It's not all the same. It's not all cookie cutter for everybody. I think that's cool. And shout out to mom, right? Like,
yep.
There we go. I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I think if you the power in that story is just understanding that it's not going to be like the same for everybody. Everyone's recruiting stories are different, and everybody has a unique journey to get to where they're at. And so, like, I want to like share that with the younger athletes that might be listening to this right now, or even the parents for that matter. Just be patient with the process and understand that it's not going to be the same for every single kid. Like, every kid's going to have a different recruiting process. But if you have a desire and you have the talent to play at the next level, it's very likely that you'll have an opportunity. You just might have to take a different journey to get there. So I want to ask you, like, what's the biggest like parallel between basketball and volleyball? Like, how did either sport help with the other? Like, how did volleyball help you with your basketball, and how did and vice versa, basketball with volleyball?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just kind of keeping to play multiple sports, because nowadays that's a lot less common. Kids kind of decide early, which there are benefits to both. But I really loved just you get a break from one and the other. So I never felt burned out with anything. It was just always really fun for me. Volleyball was a lot of fun. Basketball was a lot of fun. And then athletically, I think it just keeps you well-rounded. Volleyball, you're jumping all the time, and it's really quick movement. In basketball, there's a little more running and endurance. And so from an athletic standpoint, I felt like it just kept me pretty well-rounded. And they do carry over a little bit. There are some skills like layups that kind of carry over to certain hits in volleyball, and felt like those were maybe strengths because I did play basketball, and vice versa. So it just kind of carried over from an athletic standpoint. And then just from a competitive standpoint, having the opportunity to be in really competitive situations. In the national tournament at Salt Lake Community College, we went for a couple of my seasons there, and just having opportunities to perform at a pretty high level in different settings, just it carries over no matter what sport you're playing. So yeah, they definitely carry over with each other a lot.
Oh, I'd love to hear that too. That's super insightful. I believe that there are so many benefits to playing multiple sports. And like you said, nowadays it feels like there's a lot of kids that like they just get pushed into one. They have to kind of, because you have to play year round, and they get that pressure of just like, I got to play year round. Man, I tell you what, like there's some like the football players playing basketball and the basketball players playing football or baseball. Like volleyball, track, whatever. I just think it's not a mental burnout. It gives you a little bit of a recharge to compete in something different. But yeah, I don't know. I'm always grateful that I was, football, basketball, and boxing. Those are my three, and that's what I stuck with. And I never really ventured into others, but like I loved it because I focused on, I had each one of them had its own season, and it like allowed me to just mentally recharge. So, Annie, one of the things that's interesting is people still, even today, which is crazy to me, it's 2024, and the college athletics landscape has changed drastically. The transfer portal has shifted things up. I mean, if you go to junior colleges now, like they're extremely talented. You got 20-year-olds in junior colleges playing ball. It's completely shifted. The COVID years shifted everything too. Like had a lot of bounce backs, people with extra eligibility and so forth. But anyway, even then, with the amount of talent that we have in the college athletics landscape, I see it all the time that people hate on junior college athletics. And I don't understand how that's the case. I see it to some degree, but I feel like they hate on junior college athletics. They almost look down upon it, almost the same as if they look down on overseas athletics, which we'll get into too. I'm like, man, you have no clue the talent that's there. So junior college athletics, I feel like there's so much talent there, and there has been for well over 15, 20 years. But I want to know what your thoughts are, having played at the junior college level. What was the transition like? Was there a big transition? Maybe it wasn't for you. I want to know the real insight from your perspective of what it was like to go from high school to the junior college level of athletics.
From high school to junior college, you're racking my memory now. I'm not even that old, but I'm like, man, this is no, it was a big transition. Obviously, I started out with the volleyball transition, and so went in the summer and fall and began training with my team. And there's a lot to learn. Obviously, it's a higher pace of play and a bigger level and maybe more expectation. And teammates that are probably, your college teammates are more skilled and they have more experience. And so it's just stepping it up a whole nother level. But with that, it does take a little bit of a transition period. I think for volleyball, it kind of came, and a lot of that can be terminology or just kind of getting the feel of new teammates, new people, new setting. But a lot of that, just with myself, especially, I felt like it kind of took a little time to get settled. And then once things click mentally, the physical part happens really, really freely. So I think the mental aspect of just freeing yourself up and allowing yourself to play and be comfortable in a new space is huge. And so I kind of saw that with my transition to college, and then from junior college to Division I. In both of those transition periods, it was just a matter of freeing up yourself mentally and kind of getting settled as far as the new game plan and play and style of play and stuff like that.
So we call this thing, it's called imposter syndrome, right? Where like in the business world too, like, or whatever it is, like you get, for example, I got a new job in my full-time career, and I felt like I was like, I've been preparing for that type of a move, and they take me over there in a leadership position at my current job. And I'll be honest, like when I got there, it was almost like I had imposter syndrome. Like I was like, no, dude, I'm built for this. Like I've been doing this for 6.5 years. Like it's a new industry, but I'm built for this. But then you always kind of go back and forth. It wasn't until I like really, like for the first like 3 weeks, I'm like, man, am I really okay? Like being here? I feel like I'm not like at this level yet. No, I am. I go back and forth. It's like a seesaw. But once I was able to click out of that, I'm like, no, dude, I'm good. Like I can do this. It clicked for me. And I feel like that might be the same thing for the collegiate athletics scene. Is like, it's almost like you have imposter syndrome. Did you experience that at all? Because I feel like some of the basketball players I've coached, they go to even at the junior college level, they'll go to college and they were like the top dog. They were feeling good. And they get there and they realize, I'm not the top. And then they almost like, it goes one of two ways. Some of them can get over that imposter syndrome. And then some of them are like, man, I don't belong here. I really don't belong here. Did you feel like that was kind of what you're discussing, is like freeing yourself mentally? Was it almost like imposter syndrome?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of just, you get there and there is a lot higher competition, and it's easy to question like, oh, do I belong or fit in here? And then as soon as you kind of just, like settle into that, like I'm here, and you build those kind of relationships with your teammates and coaches, and really get to where you start performing a little bit. And then like that stuff kind of goes away. So that is something like settling into that a little earlier. It's just like, you've put in a ton of hours and have proved yourself at certain levels, and it carries over, even if there is a transition period of, hey, you're not as productive right now as maybe you were at that other level, but if you, like you said, it can go one of two ways. If you keep digging in, is kind of what I just told myself, is just keep going to practice, keep getting in the extra hours, and it pays off. And then it makes it that much better when it does pay off, right? Because you're like, you kind of know what you overcame to get there. So
That's so dope. I love that. That's super cool. Now, when you go over to the D1 level, I mean, obviously, I'm sure like facilities are better. It's a better, it's just a better probably overall experience, just being there. But was there any like tough transition outside of what you just mentioned there? Like as far as, I mean, obviously competition's higher, but even from the academic standpoint, did you feel like, you had access to a lot of different resources at a D1 level that you might not have at the junior college level, but did that almost act as a distraction, or how did you keep yourself locked in from an academic standpoint too, so that you were eligible to play?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. And there are, like you said, so many resources. So that is a really incredible part of college athletics. It doesn't matter kind of what aspect of your life you're trying to improve. There are resources there to support student athletes specifically. And so from the academic standpoint, that was actually a big decision in me choosing to go to Colorado State. It worked with what I wanted to do academically and had a ton of support from our student athletics center. And they're just huge in providing, if you need tutors or if you need any extra help in any classes, they're willing and there to help. And for me, it just kind of was, I had kind of gotten into the habit of just good study habits and kind of balancing that load of athletics and academics and just kind of figuring that out. But definitely a ton of resources through tutors and study tables and stuff like that to keep you successful and eligible in both academics and athletics.
So what advice would you give to somebody that's getting ready to go to college for the first time? I mean, you're a student athlete, and so you have to be eligible to play. And so, I think there's a lot of kids that don't realize the grind that it's going to require to go to class on your own. Now you're on your own. Like, you don't have mom and dad having to like, you kind of have a free schedule in a sense. But what would be the biggest piece of advice for someone going in to be a student athlete and like locking in? Like you mentioned, having a schedule, a cadence. You kind of just did the thing. You built that discipline. But is there something that you would specifically say, like, hey, just be ready to do this, and just as long as you do this, you'll be okay?
I think just going off of that and seeing like our incoming class this year, especially, just if you need help with anything, don't hesitate to ask. Because I think a lot of the time as a newcomer, we're hesitant to ask because we don't want to seem like we don't know what's going on, or we don't, we're not like able to do what we're supposed to do. But like we just talked about, there's so many resources and they're there to help. And so when students say, like, we had a student that was like, hey, I'm taking a couple high level courses and I think I might need help. And that was just kind of an upfront thing. And we were able to get resources for her that she needed, and she crushed her classes and had a really successful semester. And so I think that's huge, is just don't be afraid to ask for help, and you might not need it, but it builds really important relationships that are going to last for a really long time. So getting in there with the people in our academic center, like, they're great, and their sole purpose is to be there to support you, and they really care a lot. And it just kind of opens that door for a relationship that's going to be a blessing no matter what. You might not need help down the road academically, but you'll want to go into your coordinator's office and sit and talk about their day and see kind of how they're doing. And so just building those relationships and not being afraid to ask for help, I think, are huge.
That's so cool. Awesome. And we mentioned it earlier, injuries. I wanted to talk to you about that. That's a big piece that, I think, Annie, outside of like just the general public, when they watch athletics, like they watch athletes, they see an injury come up on ESPN or something, like, oh, so-and-so has a torn ACL, out for the year, or whatever it might be. And they just like, they just go on about their day. The next season comes around, the athlete's healthy again and they're playing. So they just assume everything was okay. They don't really see what goes on behind the scenes of what that athlete actually has to go through. Even the superstars, they have to go through their whole entire process, the surgery process, the physical therapy process to try to get back, the whole rehab process, the mental and physical toll that takes on an athlete. So I want to talk about that because I feel like it needs to be discussed. There are a lot of athletes that get injured that I know that didn't expect the mental grind and the stresses that come along with it, because they simply weren't informed of how that was going to be. They didn't have a reality like check yet. This is their reality check. So going through those injuries, what was the hardest part about, your injuries, and I guess how did you overcome that?
I would say the hardest part for the first ACL was just a little bit of uncertainty about the long-term outcome, because previously you see a lot of athletes and maybe they come back from a big injury like that and aren't as athletic, or maybe not what they used to be. And so I think that was when I first hurt my knee, a bit of a fear of mine of just like, okay, what if I don't come back and I'm not as athletic as I was before? But there are a lot of, especially at Colorado State, I always felt really grateful that that's where I was when I had that injury, that first injury, just because the resources there are incredible, and the people, my athletic trainer was huge, and just, like, and kind of a thing, like when I hurt my knee, it's like, all right, I have two choices. I can, like, it happened. And so I just got to do my best and get through this and learn a lot from it. And so, yeah, just kind of the unknown before you get into all of your surgery and rehab and kind of what the outcome is going to look like was definitely my big thing before I kind of got into that injury rehab. So,
Man, so the unknown. Okay. So the unknown. That's a fear, but I like what you just said right there. I hope people take note of it. It's like, okay, well, it happened. So I have a choice. I can either do this or I can do this. I can either get through it or I can sit here and piss and moan. Essentially, you didn't say those words. I'll say those words. But it's like that's kind of the options you had. So and I love that. I mean, that's just kind of when something happened, like an injury, it happened. You can't take it back now. It's happened. So that's the reality. You have time to kind of be upset, and then it's like, okay, now I got to figure it out. And I think that's a valid concern. I mean, when I tore my shoulder out, I've talked about it on the show before. When I tore my shoulder out, like that was extremely difficult. Mentally, it was difficult. The rehab, 6 months of just never knowing if I was going to be fully healthy again. It just was like a grind just to get my shoulder to move again. Terrible. But you just have to kind of go day by day by day, and it's tough, but mentally it took a toll on me. But it's kind of funny, like I like to lean on others who have gone through injuries. That's one of the things that I do. Like if I go through an injury or if I talk to someone who has, I've had a girl on our show named Amari Whiting, and she's playing down at BYU at this time with her mom's a coach. And Amari had blown her knee out her senior year in high school in Timpview in Utah. And yeah, she was talking about that struggle too. And I was able to reach out to her because I'm like, listen, like you're not the only one to go through it. And so just lean on those who have gone through it, because it sucks when you're in the storm, but there's other people like yourself who have gone through it and you can lean on that. And it's kind of cool to see her kind of get back, and she's at full strength now and she's playing at her pace and everything. So yeah, injuries suck. But Annie, as you were finishing up your college career, as far as athletics are concerned, did you have the itch to play at the next level, or did that happen like after you graduated, when you were going through, similar to when you're in high school and you're trying to figure out the recruiting process? When did that idea actually come about for you that you said, okay, I can do this. I can do this at the next level if I have to. So like, when did that come about?
So I actually remember when I was getting ready to transfer from the junior college to Division I had kind of been thinking about that. Like, it would be really fun to play overseas. My older brother played overseas, and so that was kind of on the radar then. And I had that conversation, I remember, just with one of the coaches that I was being recruited by, and she was just like, that's it's a big goal, and just like, it's difficult. And I did realize that at the time, but I just kind of felt like if I focus on right now, just going somewhere that really allowed me the opportunity to grow as a player in the way that I needed to, and worked hard and did what I was supposed to do, the opportunity might be available to me. And so I did. I had a really good senior year after the ACL year. Came back almost, I would say, more athletic and just with a different perspective mentally than I had before, that I felt was to my advantage and allowed me to have a really successful senior year. And I was reached out to actually by an agent in Spain. And at that time, I actually had decided, Shane, to serve a mission. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I had decided to serve a mission after I finished playing college basketball. And so I ignored that message from my agent and I served my mission. That's a year and a half. And when I got home from my mission in 2022, I still kind of wanted to play basketball and was kind of back and forth if that was what I should do. But I was like, no, I'm going to just go with it, and did have that opportunity. So I reached back out to the agent who had messaged me, and we got into touch really quickly and had opportunities to come. So I trained for a couple months to get ready to go back over and went to play in the fall of 2022. So that's kind of how that process went, the transition from college to overseas.
So that's wild. So where'd you serve? Where'd you serve your mission?
I served my mission in Taiwan, and so it was during COVID as well. So I was reassigned to the Oakland, California mission for a couple of months, and then spent 11 months, the end of my mission, in Taiwan. So
you were down there in the COVID years over there. That's crazy. Yeah. So that opens up a whole new can right there. So I also served. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as well. And I served in Brazil. So, but that was back in 2008, 2010.
Cool.
So bit older, but here's the craziest part about it. So you came back and ended up playing professionally. Holy cow. I always ask this question to those who have served missions and have come back, how they even got in shape to play college athletics. Like it's crazy to me because when I was gone for 2 years, Annie, I'm not joking you. I came back. You would never guess it now if you knew me because I'm like 225 pounds and it's like I have a dad bod now. But like back then, I was a stick. I came home at 170 pounds. I lost all my weight living in Brazil. Like I was a stick. I lost everything. And it took forever to even get back to a point where I felt like I was strong enough to even compete in any sort of athletics in the rec leagues, for crying out loud. So I don't know how you can come back and get like in shape to play professionally. How did you do it? How did you come back and like what did you do to get yourself, your body in the condition that it could compete at that level?
So I also, like you, I was a little out of shape when I got home from my mission. And I had about 4 months. Well, I got home in March of 2022 and I went in September of 22. So, but from the point I decided to play, I had kind of I like to exercise and like to lift. And so I was kind of trying to get back into shape just on a personal level. And then when I decided to play, just kind of ramped up, getting shots up and kind of sprinting and getting into game shape as much as I could. And then I actually, I went back and I was practicing with Salt Lake Community College. So my assistant coach at the time, Marcelina Grayer, is now the head coach, and one of my previous teammates is her assistant. And so that was actually really fun to go back and practice with them for a couple of weeks before I went overseas. And I just had family that would come and rebound for me, and just the same thing, kind of getting back into shape, getting a lot of shots up, getting ready to compete at that high level and get ready to go overseas. So.
Wow. So cool that you did that. That was a little twist in the story that I didn't realize, I don't think.
Yeah.
Super cool. Now, Annie, I listened to a podcast about 3 or 4 years ago. It was a 30 for 30 podcast about Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird. And I think it was called The Spy Who Signed Me or something like that. Anyway, it was about their experience playing overseas basketball in Russia. It was basically kind of highlighting how much, I mean, there's some corruption over there too at the time, but they were playing overseas compared to women's basketball here in the States. So they'd go over there, they'd make a lot of money. And there was, even the ones who didn't make a ton of money, it was actually really popular. Women's basketball overseas was really popular. Then they'd come here to play during the summers for the WNBA to try to keep the star names in there. And it was just like a different experience here in the United States. Anyway, from that time, I've really gained an appreciation for not just women's basketball, but women's basketball overseas because of just what it seems like. It seems to be pretty competitive, and there's a lot of amazing athletes over there. What was your experience like over there overall, competing overseas?
It was very brief. So that's where I had my second ACL came pretty quickly, actually, when I was over there, about 2 weeks after in our like friendly preseason games. But I will say, I did stay over there for about a month after and was watching a lot of basketball. And I've got a lot of college teammates that are still playing overseas, and they are really high level athletes. And just to see them to be able to compete in a place where it's a different kind of culture over there, where the women's professional programs have been going for quite a while over there. And so to see the support that they get, and that a lot of my teammates are there still able to play very high level basketball, it's awesome to just see that there are opportunities. And it's growing here, as we've seen the last couple of years. It's kind of it's really awesome to see how much women's basketball has grown here, and it's fun to be a part of that right now in this time. But there's a lot of really high level basketball over there that a lot of them probably could be over here. There just aren't as many teams in the WNBA right now for those opportunities. But yeah, really high level basketball still going on overseas.
Glad you said that. That's a major point. Like a lot of them could play over here. Like that's just they have this idea of like, oh, they're not good enough to. No, there's plenty of high level athletes that are good enough to play. Good enough to play. They're well equipped to play over here. There, it's supply and demand. I mean, like the sport hasn't grown to a point over here, even for men's too. I mean, there's plenty of overseas basketball players that are like, I argue would be, fifth, sixth options on certain NBA rosters, but there's certain amount of spots and, roster spots and contract negotiations and so forth that don't allow for that. So yeah, that's cool to hear. So after you injured yourself, was that kind of your sign of like, hey, it's time to hang him up? Or when did you know it was time to hang him up from a player's perspective?
I did after immediately when I had that second injury, I did feel I kind of knew right away that might be an ACL and just kind of spent the time there enjoying that. And then when I came back, I decided to come back to the US for my surgery and rehab. And I was ready to be finished at that point. Just my body had been through a lot and I still loved the game, but was okay with being done. I felt like, I had gotten to the highest point that I wanted to and was really grateful for my career. And so was at peace with being done. That being said, I got my surgery in about November. And I was watching a lot of basketball games at that time. And I'm like, I think I could still get out there and play, and kind of had talked with some people about, maybe trying again. But at the end of the day, I just felt like, I'm okay to be done, and just really grateful for my career that I had as a player. And so I still love to get in and play some pickup and stuff like that, but was really at peace with my career and ready to be finished from a playing standpoint. So.
Oh, that's good to hear. It's good to hear that you were at peace with it. A lot of athletes, well, not a lot, but there's some that, don't always get they don't always feel that way. They feel like it was taken from them or something of that nature. Not every athlete gets to go out the way they wanted, but if you're at peace with it and you've accomplished what you set out to accomplish, it can really help with that transition out of sport, so to speak, from a playing perspective. And it's good to hear you're still playing pickup ball. I mean, join the club. There's some good pickup ball out there, man. I tell you what, the rec leagues and everything, there's some high level athletes. Heck, like I said, your brother Griffin, dude, he's still dominating here in Meridian, Idaho. I tell you what, like everybody knows Griffin Brady around here. It's like, oh, it's Griff's team. It's Griffin. We got good players still out there. Anyway. So the coaching scene now, we said at the beginning of the podcast, I mean, you're at Colorado State as an assistant coach for the basketball program over there. What was the biggest transition for you, Annie, going from playing to coaching? Because I would be curious to hear your thoughts. I have my own thoughts from it. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
That's a great question. I was kind of curious, given the way that my playing career ended. I'm like, will this make me want to go and play again if I'm, right back in the basketball scene? And but it didn't. I actually got out here and was just really excited. I think a big part of athletics for me has been that I've had great coaches and mentors, and I was really excited to kind of step into that role for some of our players. And having played at Colorado State, I have a lot of love and respect for this program and for some of our coaches. My head coach is Ryan Williams, is going on his 13th season, and so I played for him and one of our assistants, Rico Burkett. And so being with them on the coaching side, I feel like they've been huge in just mentorship and really honest feedback and encouragement, and just eager to show me the ropes. And so that's been huge and a lot of fun to be back in a place where it did feel like home as a player, and now it feels great being back here. But yeah, I was curious if I would miss playing, but that's been great. It's just been fun to kind of see the next generation coming up. And so that's kind of been the transition. And then as far as working out, I look very young. And so sometimes we had a family on campus this last weekend with recruits, and they're like, oh, we thought that you had just graduated college or something. And so I look young. So I'm like, are they going to take me seriously? But it's just, that is a huge strength, I think, of just being kind of, I was in their shoes not too long ago. And so that's been a huge point to just relate with them. And, like, I know what you're going through, and kind of the things that we've talked about of helping them overcome those struggles. If you stick through it, like, you can have a lot of success here. And so I think that's actually been a really a fun part of being here on the coaching staff. So
I love to hear that. That's really cool. And I think it's good for those athletes to like be able to relate. They know that you're not too far removed from it. I guess that's relative to who you talk to, but yeah, you're relatively like new to being removed from the collegiate athletic scene. And so they understand that, and they can relate to you. So some of the problems that I've run into, and I've been coaching for 4 years at the club scene. So when we travel to tournaments and stuff, what I find, Annie, is that it takes a toll on me. Like, I don't know. I feel like I get more emotionally invested in the team's success than I did as a player, because you want them to do so well. And there's games where we'll get housed by 30, and there's games where we house other teams by 30. It's like, it's so up and down. It's like unbelievably bipolar the way that our teams work in the club basketball scene. But like, I get so emotionally invested in and I think the reason why is because for me as a coach, I can draw up a play. We can practice everything that we want to practice. We can put in the best plan. We go out there and do it, but I don't get to execute. I literally have zero impact on the execution factor. And I think as a player, at least you had something to do with the execution of the play. If coach draws up a play, you have some sort, whether you're setting a screen, whether you're not involved, but you're a decoy, whether you have the ball in your hand, you're shooting the ball. You have some piece of the execution factor. Have you noticed any of that yet? As far as being a struggle, because you don't have any impact on the execution, and that, for me, that's a struggle. Maybe it's not for you.
Yeah, no, that is huge. And it's kind of an interesting perspective, right? Of just, you've always had coaches that are like, we can't win it for you. Like, you're between the lines. And so you've got to get it done. And that is true. I think for me, whenever I've kind of felt that of, I can't do it for them right now, it's kind of pushed me to, from a coaching perspective, it's like, okay, what can I do different that might be able to strike a nerve with some of these kids that it might mean more or make more sense, explain it in a different way. And so I feel like I've tried to use that to kind of just reflect back on myself. Like, okay, if this isn't getting executed, like, what's something else that I can change or maybe do better? And at the end of the day, just kind of realizing the things that I can and can't control. And so I love, like, our players are great. They're getting in the gym. They have great personalities and work really hard. And so just getting some of them to, like, we'll do a lot of individual workouts, and just getting that to carry over into a team workout, or when we get in 5-on-5 is huge. And it's like, I can't execute that for them, but maybe trying to figure out another way, like, all right, I could rephrase this another way. But it is a struggle. It's like, at the end of the day, they've got to be the ones to do it. But I feel like, especially this young in my coaching career, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can and soak it up. And so, whether that's going to other coaches and being like, hey, like, is there another way that I could teach this or explain this maybe for this player specifically, that she might understand it a little bit better, and get it to click or carry over. So that's kind of how I've tried to manage that and deal with that so far. But
that's awesome. Super cool. I got a couple questions to finish up, and one of them is regarding the mission. I just want to know from your perspective, like, I don't care what faith anybody is out there. This is actually a pretty cool concept. I think there's a lot of things that a mission can teach you, even in the athletics world. And I wanted to ask you, are there any life lessons that you took from your mission that you served for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that you could take into not only your playing career when you came back home and competed, but then into your coaching career that you're now into? Is there any, like, life lessons that, like, transition from one to the other?
Yeah, I think definitely a lot. Trying to narrow that down, I would say just the relationships, honestly, is a huge one for me. So it was really cool. There are a few members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Colorado State Athletics Department. But besides that, a lot of my staff and my teammates, none of them were, but they were always very respectful and inquisitive, and we would have really open conversations, and they were really supportive of me on my mission. So a lot of them actually kept in touch, and you send out emails or updates, and a lot of them would respond. And so for me, that was really huge, of just kind of building these relationships. Like, we're all about athletics, and we're all about competing and winning in basketball, and it's fun. But at the end of the day, it's like, these are people that, they really care about you, and they want to see you succeed in your personal endeavors. And so that was a huge part of just having had kept in touch with so many of them from, we had people that were my boosters, or people that were assistant coaches, or on our athletic training staff that kept in touch. And so coming back here, it was like, we didn't skip a beat. It was just, it'd been 4 years, but it was like, oh, they're eager to ask how my mission is. And really, the thing that I would say I learned is just, like, a bigger trust in a plan that God had for me specifically. And so I kind of see that in my players and just seeing where they're at in any way that I can encourage them, despite like faith might be different, but just like, hey, like you've got a big plan here for you. And I think that goes into a lot of things, whether they face injuries or whatever might come. It's like things are going to work out and like it's going to be okay. So just a long-term perspective and really valuing the relationships that you're building along the way. So
Man, the long-term perspective, the eternal perspective on things,
yeah.
I promise everybody, I don't care what faith you are, but if you have an eternal perspective on things, it shifts a lot of things. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because you had gone through some injuries. And I think people can get caught up in the now and the storm that they're in. But when they have an eternal perspective, and I too would say that that was something I took away from my mission that I've been able to take with me throughout the rest of my life so far, as just understanding there's a bigger purpose. So trying to find the tender mercies, trying to find that purpose, even when you're in the storm. Like, man, it's like, it sucks really bad right now, but I'm wondering, like, what is this teaching me? Because you have that understanding. That's just, it's vital. I'm so glad that you shared that too, because I'm like, man, I felt that too.
Yeah.
So Annie, what's at this point, if you look at your career right now, where you are right now as an assistant coach, and you look back on all of your experiences, what is the biggest life lesson that sports have taught you?
The one word I would say that comes to my head is grit. I don't know if you've read that book, but yeah, that's probably just the one, because things and like we've talked about, my athletic career hasn't necessarily been linear or easy or perfect, but it's been probably exactly what I needed to just teach me to, work through some hard things and to have a lot of joy in the process. And so that is one thing that I feel like sports and basketball have taught me, is just to keep pushing through a lot of the difficult parts of things, but that they'll play out for me really well in the end. And so I'm really grateful for just the parts of my athletic career that might not have been super easy, but have taught me a lot and kind of helped me to become who I am. And so just grit. And as I was speaking, honestly, a lot of gratitude. So a lot of things to be grateful for in my athletic journey. So
Grit and gratitude. Write that one down. I love it. Love it. And you mentioned, Annie, that it wasn't linear necessarily, but they always say it's like a heartbeat goes up and down, right? If it flatlines, it's not a good thing, right? Flatline in the medical industry is like, it's bad. So you got to have those ups and downs. It keeps the thing beating. Got peaks and valleys. And it's a good thing if you can if you can be grateful for those moments that are tough and the moments that are great, because it'll all be teaching you something. So last question is, what are the plans for Annie Brady moving forward? I know it's not linear, so maybe you're willing to pivot, but what do you intend on doing in the next 3 to 5 years in your career?
Honestly, I've since I've been coaching, I don't feel like I've worked a day, and I'm like, I can see myself doing this forever, honestly. And so for right now, it's just like I mentioned, just learning as much as I can, whether that's from on the court stuff to kind of coordinate. I've had a lot of conversations. One of our assistant coaches was, pulling us in on an academic meeting and just every aspect kind of that goes into college athletics. And so right now, just soaking up as much as I can of that, and getting ready to have a really good season this year. And just as opportunities come and feel right for me, to take them. But right now, just being in a space that I really love basketball, and I love the position that coaching gives you to connect with young players that are really talented, have the whole world in front of them. And so just to kind of keep pursuing this as opportunities come. I don't know what that will look like this early in my coaching career, but yeah, I've loved it and it's been super fun. So I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. So
Love to hear it. Well, we're going to be rooting you on. I'll be following your journey from here on out now, and I'm really excited for it. So, Annie, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining the show and being willing to share your story with us. And is there anywhere where like the listeners can follow you? I don't know if you have any social media that you post stuff on, but like if there is, feel free to shout it out.
I do have. I'm not active on it right now. I do have an Instagram that's Annie Brady, I think, but we'll follow some stuff on there. But yeah, just following the CSU women's basketball program, I think, is probably the place to go. We're excited for this year, and really excited. We've got a good group of girls, and so we're expecting to have a really good year with them. So
Heck yeah. We'll put the links here too to follow Colorado State's women's basketball program. So y'all can do that as well. So yeah, Annie, I appreciate your time. And for those who are listening, make sure to hit us with that, that follow. Hit us with the subscribe. If you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, subscribe to the show. It's free. If you're watching it on YouTube, hit the follow button, because we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.